Hello, everyone. Welcome to our final day of HathiTrust Community Week. We're so happy that you are here today to talk about building the collection through special collections. Before we get started, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. Keep in mind that today's session is in HathiTrust meeting, so please keep your microphones off and your cameras off during the presentation in the talk today. But then when we get to the Q&A, feel free to unmute your microphone and ask your question live if you want to. Also, this session is being recorded and we will post that by the end of the week. So today's session is a little bit different than our other sessions for Community Week this week in that instead of just being a presentation, we are doing a panel today. So I'd like to introduce our panel. We'll be facilitated by Heather Weltin, our Collection Strategist for HathiTrust. And she is joined by Alyssa Pierce, the Digital Preservation Librarian at Case Western Reserve University, Julie Herrada, the Curator of the Joseph A. Labadie Collection at the University of Michigan, and Melissa Kunz, the Director of Special Collections at the University of Tulsa. And so now I am going to turn it over to Heather.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. So before we get into our panel discussion today, we want to, start over. Before we get into our discussion today, focused on the value of special collections in HathiTrust, we wanted to help familiarize everyone with the HathiTrust collection at a very basic level. And if we could go back one slide, backwards.
Sorry, I am having trouble with the slides.
Okay, slide 3.
Yep.
That's okay, I can't talk today, so you're all in good hands, I promise. Thank you, Melissa. So our collection, the HathiTrust collection, includes thousands of years of human knowledge and published materials from around the world. We collect only formats of book and book-like items. So while this means, of course, we include books, because I just said that, we also include items like magazines, newspapers, sheet music, journals, and government documents. Our collection represents all major Library of Congress subjects and really mirrors many of the items on the shelves at large academic research libraries. HathiTrust Digital Library came into being during the mid-2000s when companies like Google began scanning print titles from the shelves of university and college campus libraries. While many of those same libraries created HathiTrust in 2008, they united library copies of those digitized books into a single shared collection. And in order to make as much of that collection available for access as allowable by copyright law. And this is the HathiTrust collection. Today, about 95% of the collection is digitized from print by Google and a few other mass digitization efforts. Although most of our collection has been built through mass digitization, HathiTrust Digital Library does provide titles that Google doesn't. And this includes collections of distinctions from members, from states, and locally published materials, as well as works from institutional repositories. And every day, the collection grows as member libraries continue to contribute digitized books for preservation and access. Next slide, please. Thank you. Thanks. As many of you know, in 2004, HathiTrust released our new strategic vision. And our vision renews our commitment to the stewardship and preservation of our collection, which is the foundation of all of the work HathiTrust does. It makes it possible. And within this commitment to our collection, HathiTrust also wants to expand and diversify the collection. So in late 2024, I was hired as the Collection Strategist for HathiTrust, and the main focus of my role is to help HathiTrust achieve our strategic vision through our collections. So in order to guide our collections work, HathiTrust recently finalized a new collection strategy, which is on the screen now. While we have yet to promote this new strategy, and you're getting a sneak peek, we have started to make steps to achieve it. This strategy is aimed at helping HathiTrust move beyond mass digitization collections and really start to actively manage and curate a collection with our members. And while I could talk about this strategy all day, I did want to call out a few sentences from the new strategy that are pertinent to our discussion today. HathiTrust will steward and preserve a diverse, discoverable collection that supports research, scholarship, and the common good. And shifting our attention towards strategic growth, active management, and expanded partnerships, we will ensure collection alignment with members and user needs, maintaining relevance and inclusivity. And all of this brings us here today. So we are excited to bring together a panel of members who digitize special collections materials and then contribute those to HathiTrust. While our panelists are just representatives from 3 out of our 60 library members who contribute content, their unique contributions diversify content and preserve specialized materials. And as a result, access and discovery of these special collections through HathiTrust happen. All in all, having special collections in HathiTrust meets our and their library's visions and missions to contribute to research, scholarship, and the common good. So without further ado, let's get started with our panel discussion. And as a reminder, today we have Alyssa, Julie, and Melissa joining us today. Each of them represent different types of institutions, different digitization workflows, and different membership sizes and lengths of time of being members. So Melissa, can you please stop screen sharing so we can see everyone, and then we can start our panel discussion. Great. So how this is going to work is I'm going to ask our panelists a series of questions, and then we're going to have time at the end for you all to follow up and ask additional questions of our panelists to learn more about what they do. So for this first question, let's hear from Alyssa, and then we'll hear from Julie, and last but not least, Melissa. So Alyssa, to kick us off, could you share why you decided to contribute digital content to HathiTrust, specifically special collections, and what's your process for digitizing these items?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that people might be a little bit surprised to hear that our decision to ingest into HathiTrust initially was a financial one. I am the digital preservation librarian, so that's kind of the area that I come at this work from. I'm the first digital preservation librarian at Case Western. When I arrived, we had about 90 terabytes of backlogged material that needed digital preservation care and no pre-existing program. And so I had to get a little bit creative about how to use our resources to make sure that we're stewarding and sustaining this material. So as I was going through that process, I looked at HathiTrust digital preservation work and how HathiTrust cares for the material that is ingested, and decided that it would be justifiable for us to ingest our monographs and serials into HathiTrust, and then use that kind of as our preservation backstop and keep our preservation masters at lower quality storage that would cost us less money. This cut our prospective digital preservation budget by about 50%. Because about 50% of our materials by data volume were monographs and serials. And so that's why we started ingesting into HathiTrust. So we don't actually select materials to digitize for HathiTrust. The things that go into HathiTrust are selected for either our institutional repository or for patron requests, and then digitized. We have like a phase 1 scanner. We digitized to FADGI guidelines, and then we take the preservation masters, put them in our other storage. Then cropped copies come to me, and I do all of the processing to get them into Hathi. I run the OCR, I add technical metadata, and then I do some file transformations to make them fit Hathi's requirements. Usually for us, that means cutting our 16-bit depth to 8. And all of that work is done by me. I'm kind of the beginning and the end of the HathiTrust ingest process at Case. So yeah, that's kind of how it works for us.
Great, thank you. Julie, how would you respond to this question?
Well, hi everyone, and thanks for inviting me to this panel. I have to say our process was extremely different from Alyssa's, and it goes back to the Google Books project, all the way back to, I don't know, 2008 or so, I want to say, but you know, it's quite a long time, and basically my role in it was just to say yes. To say yes to this proposal that Google Books presented to us, and through a long process, and we're a big institution, so there are many, many people involved in the decision to do this. And I'm glad to see some of my colleagues from Michigan on this panel, or in the audience. So I'm hoping that, you know, they can chime in at some point, and they have a lot more background information in some of those decisions, and why and how they were made. But I was approached about, because Google Books wanted to basically scan everything, I was approached about scanning some materials in the Labadie collection. Now, the Labadie collection is social protest movements from the 19th century to the present. So our materials were more modern than a lot of special collections materials, and more just some of them that were actually not unique. So we were able to say yes to a lot of the materials that Google Books wanted to scan. And because I was walked through the process, the Google Books project was, they had proprietary information, so I couldn't actually see the equipment that they were going to be using, but they walked us through the process very carefully and explained how they were going to make their decisions about what they were going to scan and what they would not scan. And I felt pretty comfortable about that, because they were very conservative in the decisions that they made. If something was even the least bit fragile, they wouldn't do it. And so I felt pretty good about that. And because I really wanted more materials more broadly available, you know, we're always in that walking that fine line between preservation and access. But I lean a little bit more toward the access side of things, because I know our users, and I know how many people are restricted from coming to view them in person. And that just makes it harder for everybody to get access that they need. So that's where it started out. And hopefully that is clear, because then HathiTrust came along and took all of the Google Book files and put them in HathiTrust. And I think that was part of the original agreement that, or a very early on agreement that HathiTrust would be able to access all of those files from Google Books and put them online immediately.
Great, thanks, Julie. Melissa, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. So we also had a very different path kind of towards becoming part of HathiTrust. Really, our why was improving access for our students and scholars. The library, McFarland Library, joined HathiTrust in the summer of 2024. And this was something that we had, I think, been on the path toward for a couple of years. But part of that decision was reached when library administration was grappling with a flood that we had experienced in our collection storage spaces in the basement of the library. Luckily, that did not impact special collections, but as it did impact the general collections, and it did necessitate deaccessioning quite a number of materials, we joined HathiTrust to expand the access and scope of materials that our students would be able to reach in the library. And simultaneously, we had been in special collections researching methods that we could use to digitize our book holdings. And something that we came across was something called the Treventus scan robot. And I think we have a clip of it, or at least we have the Instagram link that I can drop in the chat. Let's see here.
Melissa, Jessica just dropped it for you.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate that. So this device came to us in the fall of last year. It is designed and manufactured by a company in Austria, and it's shipped from there. So this is a device that we use to digitize bound volumes and materials. And the way that it operates is you put the book in the cradle, kind of with its spine at the base, and it uses an air handling system, not only to vacuum the pages towards the camera prism that slides up and digitizes everything, it also uses a puff of air to automatically turn the pages. So it can scan up to 2,500 pages per hour. Obviously, it's not set it and forget it. We do have to supervise it and manage and kind of work with it. We went through extensive training in order to use this device. And really the reason that we chose this is because McFarland, General Collections, Special Collections, we don't have a digitization team here in the building. So we wanted something that could handle a lot of the imaging nuances and aspects. And one thing that was really attractive with Treventis was that we were able to work with the device's programmers to specifically set up basically a subroutine where all of the OCR packaging, all of the YAML files, kind of all that metadata that goes deep inside the files is automatically created and set up as we scan each book and item. So device was expensive. It was a significant cost, but we wanted to minimize the work for ourselves and keep things in-house for the safety of our materials. So that was important to us, and we've been really happy with it so far. We are expanding and continually learning what it's capable of and how to interact with it on a daily basis. So you know, it's a very new system for us, and I think it's really exciting.
Thanks, Melissa. That was great. It's so wonderful to hear how you all came into it from different aspects, different points. It's exciting to hear. So this time, let's start with Julie. And the question is, what are the benefits for you in adding special collection materials to HathiTrust?
Well, I think I mentioned this earlier about the access, and that's the most important aspect of it. And it does, I think it does relieve a little bit of wear and tear when somebody is asking for, or a number of people are asking for access to a particular item that they might want on site, or they might want a digital scan. So we have to keep repeatedly using that, pulling that from the shelf, scanning it, or presenting it in our reading room, and then reshelving it. So there is a lot of more handling involved when there isn't a digital scan available. And so I think that it does, in the long run, it does help really wear and tear and promote preservation of the object.
Wonderful, thank you. Melissa, would you like to go next?
I would absolutely agree with Julie on that. I think the preservation aspect of it is really important. We have certain items in the collections that are what we call evergreen. People are always going to be interested in those. People are always going to be requesting and wanting to use those. So if we can sort of shift that, not block people from using the original physical copy, but provide an alternative, a digital surrogate, then absolutely that's the kind of thing that we want to be able to provide our students and scholars. For us, it's also getting the word out about our collections. You know, we're a small Midwestern college, and we get surprised responses from researchers who are coming to us for things like James Joyce's private materials or the Life Archive of Nobel Prize winners. You know, we have surprising collections. So if we can improve people's awareness of our collections through putting them out onto HathiTrust, that's a really great thing too. We're hoping to see better foot traffic and more work with researchers kind of in the reading room and in the archives as well. So a third option for us is also that, and people don't like to talk about this quite so much, or maybe they don't, if we can scan materials that are out of scope of our collections and create those digital surrogates, it can help us create more space on our shelves for materials that better fit our active collection development policy areas and help us better target our physical materials to what scholars are interested in right now.
Thank you for being daring with that question and honest. It's appreciated. Alyssa.
Yeah, so like I talked about before, the primary, benefit that we were looking for from ingesting was the cost savings to our digital preservation program. Very self-interested of me. But we've experienced a lot of benefit outside of that. When we started ingesting, I kind of expected that a lot of our materials, even our special collections materials, would already have copies in HathiTrust. It felt like we were kind of, late to the game with ingesting. But last time I checked, which was just a couple of weeks ago, 75% of our materials that we've ingested are unique within HathiTrust. And so that's been really great to see. And it's also been a great proof of value of our special collections and of our digitization program to say, hey, look, we have all this stuff that's really unique. And make us feel like we're really contributing to that global corpus. And part of that is because a lot of our special collections material that's been prioritized for digitization is local history. It's about Cleveland, the city that the case is in. And I think that I can fairly say that we've really increased the representation of Cleveland within HathiTrust, which I'm also really proud of. Our city has a really rich history, and I think it deserves to be represented and made more accessible for people outside of Cleveland. One of the things that we've added is pretty much the full back run of Cleveland Social Journal from the 1800s and 1900s, as well as a lot of materials about immigrant communities within Cleveland. So I see that as a big value add. And then, in kind of a fun niche set, as I was scrounging for digital files as the digital preservationist, I found the original CD backups of the ebook digitization program that CASE had from 1999 to 2005. And I am now starting to ingest those materials into Hathi. And so it's been really great to kind of give that digital work a longer life. These were scans that people at our library thought were completely lost. And so it's been really great to kind of give those more life. And also that's work that we don't have to replicate again if we can use the scans that were preserved on those CDs. And yeah, like everybody's been saying, access and just a broader, more eyes on our collection has definitely been a great benefit to our program.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And I will just say that most people do assume that a lot of their materials are duplicated. And while that is certainly the case, I really appreciate you mentioning your specialized, unique collections and bringing the Cleveland representation, and then all of you talking about access and how it's really allowing you to make different decisions locally and help preserve digitally and physically for items. That's great to hear. So let's mix it up again in the order, and we'll start with Melissa this time. And so Melissa, what are you hoping for in the future related to digitizing your special collection materials and working with HathiTrust? What are your hopes and dreams?
We'd really like to come to a place where the core of our collection is digitized. We have out of our 150,000 volumes, about 64,000 of those are out of copyright. Of course, there's considerations to be made as far as their condition and their fragility. While the device that we use can be adjusted to handle more fragile materials, there are some things where the bindings or just the status are such that they really need a lot more care. So we would like to see ourselves going forward, responding to each year kind of the new materials that are coming out of copyright. And we would like to invest in a device that's specifically meant for imaging fragile materials, particularly fragile materials. We'd really like to see a full-time position be funded for our library for running the scanning device and focusing on mass digitization of our book collections. But in the meantime, we have seen interest from information technology and library students in our region They typically come to us. We're sort of the place in the region for archival internships. And so we've started seeing interest from students who want to work with digital collections, who want to work with metadata. And so that provides them a really interesting and unique opportunity to get to work with kind of both the archival materials as well as the digital materials.
That's great. Thank you. So Alyssa, do you have anything to add around your thoughts for this question?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, we don't select right now for HathiTrust, so I would love to move into a program where we could select some material for HathiTrust. I'd like to do an analysis of our special collections and see what other materials we have that aren't represented in HathiTrust and maybe make that one of our digitization priorities. I also particularly would like to check for international materials that we have in our collections that could benefit from being on HathiTrust. We have a large portion of our special collections that is from some local donors who were in Europe around, before, during, and after World War II and shipping books back away from potential war zone. And we already know some of our materials now don't exist in their home countries anymore. And so I would really like to get some of those materials digitized and available on HathiTrust to take advantage of that global access to make sure that home countries have access to their cultural materials.
Great, thank you. Julie.
Yeah, just like Alyssa, I would like a lot more of our international materials to be available through HathiTrust. We do collect internationally, so we have a lot of European languages and even some Asian language material. And I would like to see more of that put in HathiTrust if possible. And I would just like to see more and more. I would like to see much more than we already have. And I don't know what that would take. But I know that our staff is it's pretty, stretched pretty thin now. And so I don't know that that would be a possibility without a much more robust program and a commitment from the university library to do that.
Well, great. Thank you so much to all of you three. I'm going to pause now of asking questions, and I want to open it up to the audience to ask questions, or if there's any in chat for Melissa or Jessica to help with. But I just want to tell everyone, feel free to type it in chat, feel free to type it in Q&A, and raise your hand if you'd really like to talk. So I know these things can take a while if you're typing or deciding to be brave. So I hope someone is to kick us off, but I'll just be silent for a bit.
Oh, here's a question for Julie. Is the entire Labadie collection in HathiTrust?
Oh, no. Not even a fraction of it is in HathiTrust. There's so much material. I mean, we've been in existence since 1911 and have been growing and growing. We really haven't ever stopped growing the Labadie collection, and so we're getting new materials in all the time, not only historical materials that are filling in the gaps of what we already have, but also contemporary materials that are produced now. I mean, most of our social movements now are online, of course, but we do also target social movements that have tangible artifacts to represent those movements, like flyers and pamphlets, buttons, leaflets, posters, things like that. So I don't think we'll ever get to the point where it's all in HathiTrust, but I would like to get more and more of it if possible.
Thanks. Jonah, you can go ahead and ask your question live.
Great, thanks. So I'm wondering about how you think about prioritizing materials based on their copyright status, meaning that they could be openly available in HathiTrust versus things that will remain closed. Are you doing some kind of minimal copyright analysis saying, yeah, this object could most likely be open, or we know for sure it's in the public domain, therefore it's a high priority for scanning and inclusion in the collection? Or is that really not a factor that you're thinking of, and it's just like, well, let's get everything we can into HathiTrust, and then they'll figure that out eventually. And I'm pretty sure I know the answer for Case Western, since you're scanning based on your patron and other use factors. But for everybody else, I'm interested in that question.
Melissa, would you like to kick that off on your process?
Yeah. So ours exclusively focuses on whether something has fallen into the public domain. Like I said, we have about 64,000 volumes. And so we look at whether the first edition is essentially gone out of copyright. And then we determine from there its status and its condition. We look at the items more carefully to determine whether the scanning machine can handle it and what kinds of adjustments need to be made.
Great. I have another question. How are folks at these institutions and at HathiTrust preparing for Title II regulations coming our way? It's kind of a big question.
Well, I can kick it off for HathiTrust. I'm by no means not the expert or on this group, but on our Title II group. But I do know that HathiTrust is doing a lot of investigation around this and discussing about what it means for our content and accessibility of the content. And so we're really starting to dig in and come up with the actions we need to take so that we can provide the adequate access to our items following Title II. And I would include any of my other HathiTrust colleagues to raise their hand or jump in if I messed anything up in that. Phew.
How does your institution decide between scanning special collections material for HathiTrust versus scanning materials from the general collections, as time and machines are limited?
I mean, speaking from us, we don't really do materials from the general collections. Only if there's a really particular case or a patron request. Our scanning capability, we have one digitization technician and then any student workers that we can train up. So we really highly prioritize the special collections material.
Same for us. We're kind of the specialists in the building, so to speak. I don't think that we would turn down a request if something in the general collections, if the other librarians wanted something digitized, or if a patron wanted something digitized, we would have to consider kind of use and access.
I'm not ever involved in those questions. So I only manage the Labadie collection itself, and the requests that would come directly to me from somebody who wanted something from the Labadie collection and not like this or that. So I would be, I wouldn't even be a party to those, not only those questions, but the decisions.
This is an interesting one from Michelle Palillo. I am curious if there is a way for members to coordinate regarding desiderata. For instance, if one member could not digitize and deposit something that another member might hold, or if there are subject areas that HathiTrust would especially welcome deposits to improve strength or coverage.
So I'm really happy you asked this question because I get to talk to you about a really cool thing that we're working on. And I promise I did not pay Michelle to ask this question. But what I will say is we are starting to do really in-depth collection and analysis and analytics so that we can actually provide this information at detail and levels we haven't, and that are really up to date, 24-hour. up to date. And so what we're hoping we'll be able to do internally is start having these discussions with our members about items you might have in the collection, in your collection, that we don't have because you share your print holdings with us. And or you might start deciding when you use a member part of this dashboard to see if there's items that actually you're really strong in that you want to make sure are in HathiTrust. So it's really exciting. More soon. Jessica and I are right now working on how to announce the entire collection strategy. We want to get a couple things going as part of that announcement. And so hopefully soon it'll come out. Thank you.
Okay, I've got one from Renata Ewing at California Digital Library. I love hearing all of these details. Thank you. Are any of your institutions showcasing or promoting your special collections items once they are in HathiTrust? And if so, how are you doing this?
We definitely do at Case, usually through the particular lens of look what we're doing in HathiTrust, because most of our materials pretty much, 90% of our materials are also ingested into our institutional repository. So mostly we advertise those materials and organize them into collections on Digital Case, which is a great resource if anybody wants to check it out. But we have sent out, we've used, there's a daily university newsletter. We've had information about our ingesting into HathiTrust in there. And we also have a whole plan for when the Cleveland Bystander, the social magazine that I was discussing earlier, is fully ingested. I have a bibliographic slowdown on one part of it right now. We really want to push that out. And for us, it's really more about sharing the great work that the library is doing versus highlighting the collection, because the collection gets highlighted elsewhere in the library.
I will say, I think for us, we're sort of still in the early stages, but we, through social media, through, new aspects of our website refresh that we're undergoing, we would really like to kind of do some of the things that Alyssa has been talking about, a newsletter and different aspects like that.
That's a really great question. I wish I knew the answer. What we do at
One of your
Michigan.
colleagues mentioned it in chat.
Yeah, Chris Powell
That?
actually responded in chat that they do build collections.
Thank you, Chris.
I love to build collections, and if you have a list of Labadie things that are in HathiTrust and there isn't already a Labadie collection, I would love to help you build that.
We'll talk.
Thanks, Chris.
There's also a link in chat from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign of a collection that they created of rare books that they have digitized and deposited in HathiTrust. So check that out.
Oh. I have one question, actually, that I didn't want to take up time with the panel so other people could ask, but maybe now's a good time so people can keep typing questions or prepare them in your mind. Are there opportunities that you see within your collection or other libraries maybe you're working with, and I'm not asking you to call them out, but what other opportunities do you see regarding unique collections that through the work you're doing now, you might see as being more valuable, and whether they're general type of themes or anything like that? I was interested in hearing from you all because you're the experts on this.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that we're talking about more and focusing on, just in, our preservation department and our digitization program in general at Case is looking for smaller, more specialized institutions that we either have previously worked with or still working with or would like to work with, and using the resources that we have as kind of a larger institution in the region to make their materials more accessible or digitally preserved, or generally trying to leverage our resources to to help collections that are, you know, in smaller institutions that don't necessarily have, you know, funding for memberships and that kind of things. So that's definitely something that's on our mind. It's something I'd like to do a lot more. You know, we have, you know, medical libraries and local history and all sorts of more specialized collections that I think could really benefit from a larger platform. And we're definitely trying to think critically about the ways that you know, us as a larger institution can help platform these, you know, really valuable smaller institutions.
I have a question for Melissa. Did you encounter any resistance locally to having a robot digitize rare special collections materials?
We had some. That Instagram post got 8 million views. And as we were watching them tick up, we did see some lively discussions in the comments that we needed to turn off. So it wasn't necessarily local. It was online. People are obviously very passionate about books, and people are very passionate about robots and kind of the perceptions around AI. And this is not an AI-powered device. It does require, like I said, a lot of supervision. There's a lot of details that go into the different settings, and you know, as one would expect with any kind of an imaging type device. But it was really nice to see that there was such a passionate overall response to it, even if it was a little scary at times.
It is so interesting too that people are always asking, well, isn't everything online? Don't you just digitize everything? And they don't really know what goes into it. But then when there's, you know, a machine that's doing the work, they're like freaking out, like, why, why is there a machine doing that work? And why isn't it harmful to the book? So there's always this kind of paradox between wanting everything online and yet not wanting to have that work done by a machine. Because that's really, you know, one way and one good way that it could all be done.
Could you speak more to whose requests, interests, or mission might drive digitization of particular materials, and to what extent does HathiTrust participate in that decision making?
So we actually have a digitization prioritization rubric, which I'm happy to share if people are interested in, which has, I think, 13 or 12 categories of, you know, weighted categories for our collections and materials. That determines what goes through our digitization pipeline. Like I said, we have very limited digitization capacity. And so we're very, very deliberate about what goes into it, as well as balancing that with our patron requests. So that's how we it's a very, you know, complicated matrix of how we balance the interests of the collections. Um, and HathiTrust does not participate in that decision-making process for us. But it is something that we take very seriously. You know, we balance the condition of the physical material with you know, the scope of the material with you know, our collection interest, how much the material is requested, to, you know, how much a digital surrogate might take some of the stress off of that. So there's a lot of different factors that we take into account when we're prioritizing our digitization process.
Just giving everyone a little minute. And Julie, in case you're not following chat, Chris did share that there is a collection, and there has been since 2014. So wonderful. Well, I know that we're sort of at the top. We only have a couple minutes left. So this is your last call to engage with our wonderful speakers. Okay. Well, Alyssa, Melissa, Julie, thank you so much on behalf of HathiTrust being able to be panelists. We really appreciate your insight and sharing your knowledge. And like I shared at the beginning, we are so excited to hear that people are doing special collections, and we really look forward to working with everyone on this more in the future and being able to provide data to really help you all decide what to add to HathiTrust. So thank you, everyone.